Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Kagaribi 12, which is the biggest tournament that we've had so far in 2024, and I honestly don't know if anything is going to beat it because you have pretty much all of Japan's top talent showing up, as well as a bunch of invaders, and it was an absolute banger. For our top 16 finishers, you're going to have Aka, Yaura, Snow, and Meister in 13th, Doramigi, Gluttony, Osimo, and Reru in 9th. In 7th, you're going to have Ken and Shutone. 5th is T and Tama P. 4th was Zachary. 3rd was Acola. 2nd was her, and winning the entire thing was Miya. So first things first, we got to talk about the invaders, starting off with the people who finished in 33rd, which is going to be Base Mage and MK Big Boss. Base Mage ends up losing to Miya in the winner's side, and then Yamanoction in the loser's side. And honestly, you can't feel bad about that one at all, considering that Miya won the event, and Yamanoction is playing Steve, and Steve Jigglypuff is a very difficult matchup for that character. So big props to Base Mage for the run, and MK Big Boss is actually going to pick up a really nice win on Tsubaki, only losing to Acola in the winner's side, and potentially the best player in the world. Even if the matchup is good for Rob, that's definitely one that you can't feel too bad about. And in the loser side, he ends up falling to level 1, and we all know how well level 1 was playing this weekend. So overall, I think solid runs from those two players. You had a bunch of invaders finishing in 25th as well. First one up is Jazo. He ends up losing to Reru in the winner's side, and Kananabe in the loser side. But I was honestly really impressed by Jazo's play at this event. To make it all the way to 25th is pretty good, and honestly, big props to Kananabe for actually taking the set over Jazo, considering that it is a fairly difficult matchup for Fox. So props to him for that. You're also going to have Goblin finishing in 25th. Speaking of players that I was impressed by, manages to take a game versus Miya, but ultimately falls down to the loser side, getting a couple of nice wins, most notably one over Leaf, who had been doing really well versus invaders at Delta, so gets a little bit of revenge there before falling to Chicken. And then two of the bigger stories of the weekend are going to be Zomba and MKLeo, both finishing in 25th place. You're going to have Zomba losing to Lax in the winner side, the Crom player, and we'll talk about him when we talk about him, but pretty shocked to see that happen. Manages to make a little bit of a loser's run, getting wins over players like Rarakusu and Hito, but ultimately falls to Shutone, and it's definitely bad luck to get Shutone in that point of the loser's side. Rob Aegis is a difficult matchup for Rob, and you do have Zomba managing to take it to game 5, but he ultimately falls, and MK Leo is also going to fall in 25th. He ends up losing to Snow in the winner's side. We kind of saw that one coming. Mario is a character that Leo has been historically struggling against a lot, and in the loser side, he ends up falling to Yamanoction, and that was a lot bigger of a question mark because we really didn't know how Leo was going to do versus a top level seed. The last time he played a super good one was Acola at Summit, I believe, and he ends up losing that set, and it doesn't go much better this time around. But I want to say, I thought that Leo Roy was looking really good at this event. I think it's already a serious threat and something that we can see taking sets off of some of these super top players, and it unfortunately didn't come in clutch at Kagaribi, but I was still very impressed by it overall. You also had Meister finishing in 13th. He's going to lose to Tamapi in the winner's side. So honestly, a little bit unlucky to lose to the same player twice in a row. But he does manage to take this set to game 5, so it was closer overall. And he picks up wins on Gachapi, Hito, and Chicken before falling to Doramigi in the loser's side. So Doramigi keeping up that streak of never losing to an invader. And I honestly don't think that streak's ever going to get broken just because of how much different his style of Min is and how much better his style of Min is compared to all of the ones in NA, the very few Min players that are in NA. But I still think this is a pretty solid run for Meister. I mean, he's the highest placing player from NA at this event by like a pretty significant amount. I mean, by 2 whole placements. So that is a pretty big accomplishment for him. And the highest placing invader at the event is going to be coming in from Gluttony. He ends up picking up wins on Goryoka and Alice before falling to Osimo, and we knew that was a matchup that he could potentially struggle in. But in the loser side, he picks up wins on both Kananabe and Snow. That Snow win is super impressive for me, just considering how well he was playing this weekend, and ultimately falls to Ken in order to get into the top 8. Manages to take it to game 5, but Wario Sonic is just an extremely difficult matchup for Wario, so I guess just big props to Gluttony for almost overcoming the odds on this one. You're also going to have Big D getting 257th after getting one guide by Ubuj. I believe that's how you say that. Sorry if that's wrong, but shouts to him for beating Big D twice. And I didn't really expect Big D to have an amazing run at this event, just considering how much better Japan is at the Ice Climbers matchup. But I was honestly pretty shocked by this, considering how fundamentally amazing Big D is. So once again, shouts to Ubuj for that upset. And there's one invader that I left for their lonesome because I want to give them the time of day, and that's going to be Spargo. He ends up losing to Totoguri and Noi for 33rd at this event, and he's unfortunately going to be knocked out of the conversation for the best in the world in the first half of 2024. It's just not feasible when you have players like Acola and Sonix who have perfect seasons. Miya has a couple mishaps here and there, but he also has the most majors won by a significant amount. I mean, this weekend alone, he wins 3 majors, 2 of them retroactively. One of them he actually wins, and he gets 2nd place at a P tier. You have Shadic playing out of his mind. Hurt has been pretty much perfect this season. It's just really difficult for Spargo in that he's got these 2 bad placements, and I feel for Spargo in this situation because he is a player. If he's able to make it into the top 8, I'm going to favor him to win pretty much every single time, but he's just struggling to get into the top 8. And I want to say, 2 bad performances do not make a player. Spargo is still a player that is in the best in the world in contention in terms of the caliber of play that he's bringing to the table, but he's simply just not going to get it this season because of these bad placements. And I think it's really important for Spargo to kind of figure out what mindset he's going to have going into the season, and I hope the mindset that he brings is the rankings do not matter to me. This season, I am not going to be able to achieve my goal, so I'm not going to be able to worry about it, and I want Spargo to use this season just to get better, to work on his secondary characters specifically. I know there was a little bit of a hint of him maybe adding a new character to his roster because he says he doesn't know if he can do it with the current lineup, but I still think he can do it with the current lineup, especially if he puts a lot more time into that core, and I do think the core is going to be extremely important, and I don't think it was the characters that ultimately lost Spargo this weekend, because if you look at the matchups he's losing, I mean, he should be winning those. He should be winning versus Banjo. He should definitely be winning versus Pokemon Trainer in PT Cloud, because that's one of the main flaws of PT is versus the Swords. He should be winning versus level 1. Donkey Kong's the only matchup where it's like a little bit iffy for Cloud, but he should be able to win it, right? The problem is the meta is just super hard right now. Everyone is so punishing. You need to know so many matchups like the back of your hand, and when you're not playing one of the like super broken characters in this game, it's very difficult to be consistent. Even on those super broken characters, it's very difficult to be consistent. So hopefully Spargo's takeaway is I just need to work on my consistency. I'm going to be working on my consistency by either grinding out one character, adding another character to the roster. It doesn't really matter for me. I just hope he doesn't like give up on his dreams. I know he was really sad on Twitter, but for perspective, Spargo is younger than Melee. People have been playing Melee competitively longer than Spargo has been alive. He has so much of his competitive career ahead of him. I don't want to hear any of that pessimism stuff. I want him to get nose to the grindstone, continue working hard, pick up a couple more major dubs this season, even though you're not going to be ranked the best player in the world. We also know that Spargo is a world beater. He is in contention for that title, and I have a lot of faith in this player still. I should also mention the top 8 seeds that didn't get into the top 8, and 3 of them we already talked about in Gluttony, Spargo, and Zomba, and the final one is going to be Yoshidora. He ends up getting upset fairly early on by Chicken, and as I said earlier, we'll get to him when we get to him, and he picks up win on Kuhaku before losing to Kuruponzu, the Rob player, so unfortunately for him, he ends up falling at 49th, and he was coming into this weekend pretty hot with his Battle of BC performance, but as I've already said in this video, it is very hard to be consistent in the current state of Smash Ultimate, especially at an event like Kagaribi, and I still think Yoshidora can be a top 10 ranked player in the world by the end of the ranking season. It's going to be a lot more difficult with this placement, but don't give up on him yet. On to our low tier segment, and it wasn't as crazy as it has been at these last couple of Japanese events. There's only 2 players that I'm going to be talking about today, and both of them end up finishing in 17th place, and the first one is going to be one of my all-time favorites in Lax, the Crom GOAT. He picks up that amazing win over Zomba Game 5 and loses another Game 5 set to Aka to just barely not get into the top 48 through the winner's side, but he didn't really care that he was in losers because he continued to farm 3-0ing Eligo and Matsunabe before falling to Snow. In order to make Crom work in the current meta of Smash Ultimate, you just pretty much have to be consistently outplaying your opponent, because the second you get hit off stage, you are just going to die. And you definitely have the tools to outplay your opponent in the neutral, but you still got to be better than them. And Lax was consistently better than his opponent this event, so big props to him for that. And Totoguri, as I already mentioned, he's got that amazing upset over Spargo, but he also picks up a really nice win on Karage, only losing to Reru and Doremigi. At this point, I think Totoguri is almost a shoo-in to be a top 50 player in the world, potentially top 40, potentially top 30 with Banjo-Kazooie. It really is unbelievable what this guy is able to accomplish. And then, not quite like his run at Delta, but Leaf, another amazing run at this event, getting 33rd, and he's just time and time again proving himself as the best Robin player in the world, picking up wins on players like Yamanakshin at this event. Leaf is amazing. All 3 of the players that I mentioned are amazing. The low tiers that can make them work in the current meta are just so impressive to me. And before we talk about the top 16 finishers, I just have 3 players that I want to mention. The first one is going to be Chicken. As I've already established, he gets that really nice upset over Yoshidora before falling to the loser side to Navy. And once in the loser side, he picks up wins on Ryuo. Not in the Diddy Kong Ditto. He actually goes Wolf versus Diddy through the entirety of the set and ends up winning that one, which isn't the craziest thing in the world. He knows Diddy Kong like the back of his hand. He's going to know how to exploit the flaws of the character. And I'm curious to see if Wolf is just like his secondary character, or if that's just the choice that he made because he really likes that matchup versus Diddy Kong. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments down below, because I didn't know Chicken had a secondary Wolf, but that's besides the point. He also picks up a win on Goblin before falling to Meister, and considering that Meister has beaten Tweak in the past in Diddy Kong versus Game Watch, that's definitely not the end of the world. He is going to be the highest placing Diddy at this event, and honestly don't know who the best Diddy Kong player in Japan is. If I had to guess, I would probably give it to Ryuo, but you do have Chicken beating him at this event. Even though it wasn't the Ditto, it is still an outplace from Chicken, and just big props to him for the run. You're also going to have level 1 with a massive losers run, losing really early on to No A, and he just recovers the super hard, being Raki, Naucha, Yonpi, Nano, and MK Big Boss before losing to Doramiki for 25th. So an amazing weekend for this player. I kind of thought after Delta 8 and he ends up losing in the pools phase, like, oh, that was just run where he was playing out of his mind. Nope, just playing amazing the entire weekend. Really hope that we get to see more performances like this from this guy. And the final one is going to be Navy. He picks up wins on Now and Chicken before losing to Ken and Shutone for 17th place. And the best Luigi player in the world and in Japan is definitely going to be going to Rero. It's not even close, but you do got to give Navy some credit because he looked really strong at this event. Definitely an amazing player. I could see him top 8ing a major event if he gets the right bracket. Even the wrong bracket, he's still able to make those really bad matchups extremely close. And I just wanted to give him a shout because he looked super good. So let's get into talking about this top 16, starting with our 13th place finishers. And I'm not going to talk about Meister just because we already mentioned him. But first one I would go over is Aka. He's going to pick up wins on Riziasu, Lax, and Yamanoction, only losing to Zach Ray and T. And this was an amazing weekend for Aka. Not only is he going to have this super solid performance at Kagaribi, but he's also going to get that really nice top 8 at Delta. And with these two performances, he's definitely in the spot right now of being the best hero player in the world for the first half of 2024. And if he keeps it up, it's going to be extremely difficult for Beast Mode Paul to catch up because he's already got a big deficit that he has to make up. And I do think that he can do it, but I was very impressed by Aka this week. And he also looked really strong at Genesis. And I just think he's leveled up massively as a player recently. Speaking of players who have leveled up massively, you have Snow finishing in 13th. He's going to pick up wins on Omari, MK Leo, and Lax, only losing to Miya and Gluto. And it's that Leo win that is especially impressive. Even though Leo has struggled in the past a lot versus Mario, it's still a matchup that is in Violet's favor, and also it's MK Leo. He is a world-class player, and to be able to beat him in any matchup is extremely impressive. And the final one is going to be Yara. He picks up wins on Carmelo, Doramigi, and Kameme, only losing to Acola and Shutone. So this event honestly isn't terrible for Yara, considering that he gets wins on Doramigi and Kameme. Those are going to be super high value, but overall, I would say this is just an okay weekend for Yara. He didn't get into any of the top 8s, which is definitely unfortunate for him, but to his credit, he runs into Spargo in the loser side of the bracket at Delta and Shutone in the loser side of the bracket at Kagaribi. Those are two extremely difficult matchups to get. Both of them are going to be on the Aegis. Well, I believe you have Shutone playing Olimar versus Yara, which is an even worse matchup for Samus, but Aegis also isn't great. So I think Yara had a pretty tough weekend overall just because the bracket was hard, but neither of his placements are bad by any means, so I guess we'll take it. On to our 9th place finishers, and we already touched on Gluttony, so I'm not going to do it again, but the first one is going to be Reru, who picks up wins on Jazo, Kameme, which is the most impressive one for me, as well as Toguri before losing to Tama P and T. And Reru is probably the most impressive player of this 2024 ranking season so far. Just the consistency that this guy has on the Luigi Ball characters is insane to me. Like, this is his second worst placement of the entire year, the other one being a 30-30 Umabora, and those are the only events where he has missed top 8 at a major, and this is still 9th at a P here. He top 8 Delta. Like, he is a phenomenal player, easily the best Luigi in the world at this point, and it's not even close. And it's up to some of those other Luigi players. They're going to have to make leaps and bounds to catch up with this guy because he's just been phenomenal. You're going to have Osimo finishing in 9th. He's going to pick up wins on Yonpi, Pisariman, and Gluttony, only losing to Miya and Shutone. And I feel like Osimo's in this really weird spot right now where he's just kind of in that gatekeeper class. There's a lot of wins that I think Osimo can get. There's a lot of top players that he can take out, like Gluttony, for example. That is a top tier caliber player that he was able to 3-0, but he's got a handful of matchups that he just cannot seem to win. Miya is a big one, Acola's one, Shuton's one, and to his credit, Miya and Acola are like the top two players in the entire world. Really, nobody can beat those guys, but I feel like Osimo is just running into them a ton in the bracket, and a lot of his runs that would go super far are just kind of ended early because of that. So if Osimo is able to overcome one or even two of those really bad matchups, I think he could be sitting in a spot where he is a top 10 player in the world. I have very high hopes for Osimo. I do think he is incredible, and he's really the only person that can make Ryu work at the super top level of the game. And the final one is going to be Doramigi. He ends up losing to Taike, or rather getting wins on Taike, Neo, level 1 Todaguri, and Meister. The only one he picked up in the winner side was Taike, as he lost to Yara. So all those other ones he manages to do in the loser side before falling to Zachary in Min versus Rob. And Doramigi is incredible. We've all known this for a very long time. He is by far the best Min player in the world. And even if I think Proto Bonham was still playing the game, I think he would have surpassed him as the best Min in the world. Maybe not in terms of ranking, because he still had Proto Bonham on the Lucina, but the way that Doramigi plays this character is just like correct. He has the best edge guarding I have ever seen. He makes me think that Min has the best edge guard in the game, and he's just ludicrous. I should also mention that this is a really nice bounce back from Osimo after the 49th at Delta 8, so big props to him for that recovery. So let's get into this top 8, and this was a fun top 8 because you have half of the talent being old guard and half of the talent being a new guard. And let's start with some of our old guard finishers. In 7th place being Shutone, and Ken starting off with Shutone. He gets a win on Mirror before being upset by Tama P, but manages to make a crazy losers run, beating Gakt, Zomba, Navy, Yaura, and Osimo to get into the top 8. And once in the top 8, he loses a game 5 set to T, all Olimar versus T. And we saw the Olimar get a ton of value this weekend, more so at Delta, where he ends up getting 3rd place, but it still gets a really nice win on Yaura as well as a win on Navy this weekend. And the Aegis picked up the slack in other areas, beating players like Gakt, Zomba, and Osimo. This was an amazing weekend for Shuton. I already think he was in contention for a top 10 spot before this weekend, but with it now, he is solidified in the top 10 in my opinion. Now, of course, he could drop out just because other players could overcome him, but I was really happy with how Shuton played here, and if he can keep this up, he should be shooting honestly for a top 5 spot going into the latter half of the year. And the other 5th place finisher, or 7th place, is gonna be Ken. We haven't seen a ton from him this season, but we all know this is a tier 1 player. He gets wins on Kept, Leaf, and Navy before falling to Acola, and it's Acola whatever, and manages to beat Glutini to get into the top 8, even though it's definitely a struggle matchup for Wario. It's still Glutini. Beating him in any asset is definitely impressive, and once in the top 8, he ends up falling to Zachary. Tries the Sephiroth, and the Sephiroth was the character that did the best versus Zachary, but luckily that was the only time we saw that character this tournament, at least for the Ken fans. Sonix is gonna probably be the best Sonic player in the world until this game explodes, but Ken is honestly getting pretty close at this point. He is an incredible player. He definitely is the best camping of any Sonic player in the world, and I think that's become more and more clear. And if he can work on his aggression, he's gonna be way scarier, and he's already pretty scary. In 5th place, you're going to have T and Tama P. T's going to pick up wins on SSSR and Kananabe before losing to her. And in the losers bracket, he beats Carmelo, Aka, and Reiru to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, gets that really nice win over Shuton. They played against each other so many times before that's really tough to predict who's going to win whenever they do face. But T managed to best him this time around and ends up losing to Acola. But overall, really solid run from T. He's been having a super good season very quietly because he's only been to 4 major events. 9th place at Umabora. He's got that top 8 of chances, which is super nice. Does miss out on Delta 8, getting 17th place there, I believe, but recovers it super hard with a 5th place at Kagaribi. I have no idea where T is going to be ranked, but it would probably be higher if he just went to more events. And the other 5th place finisher is probably the talk of the weekend, which is Tama P. He picks up wins on Masa, Shutone, Meister, and Reiru to top 8, the biggest Smash event of the year through the winner's side. And then he ends up losing to Miya in a very close game 5, as well as Zachary in the loser side of the bracket. And Tama P is incredible. I had a lot of faith in this player coming into this event and into this weekend in general, but he even overperformed my expectations. I really hope that we get to see more performances from him like this at other majors, and I honestly think that we will. Definitely the best Bayonetta player in the world at this point. Probably sitting somewhere in the top 20 of the game currently because he doesn't have any bad performances. He's got a bunch of super solid wins under his belt, and he's just kind of cracked at this game. Editing proof block here, Tama P does have one bad performance, which is his 39th at Umabora, but everything else is like literally perfect from this guy, so whatever. In fourth place, you're going to have Zach Ray. Third place, Acola. And it's Kagaribi. Of course, Zach Ray made a run, but he had to do a little bit of it through the loser side. He picks up wins on Shiryuki, Matsunabe, and Aka, and then he ends up losing to Hurt. Even though I think the Dark Bit looks super good in the snake matchup, Hurt made some amazing adaptations and was able to take it that time around. And in the loser side, he beats Dormigi to get in the top 8. Once in the top 8, he beats Ken. That's another set that has been played so many times before, though Zach Ray usually does come out on top, and it was no different this time around, as well as getting a really nice win on Tama P before falling to Acola. And Zach Ray's a player that he just comes out of the woodworks. All of a sudden, he just gets top 8 at a crazy major like this. The Kagaribi buff is one of the craziest things in Smash Ultimate because every single time there's a Kagaribi, Zach Ray is going to be in the top 8. It doesn't matter if the event before he drowned in pools or he hasn't competed in 6 months. There's a Kagaribi, Zach Ray is going to show up. That's like one of the 2 guarantees in life. It's that in taxes. It's pretty crazy, to be honest. So big props to Zach Ray for keeping the streak up. And you're going to have Acola with his worst placement of the year by far, which is third place out of P0. He gets wins on Takara, MK Big Boss, Yaura, and Ken to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, he ends up losing to Hurt, picks up wins on T and Zach Ray, and then ends up losing to Hurt once again. So that is a matchup that he is going to have to work on, but I have full confidence in Acola that he can figure it out. I'm not sure if it's going to be with the Steve or the Aegis. I think both are fine choices into Snake. I would say the Aegis probably does a little bit better, but Snake does have the access to offstage Aegis, and that is definitely not a fun part of play for the character. So I don't know what adjustments Acola is going to make. I'm very confident that he is going to make them. He is definitely still sitting in the spot for best in the world right now, but the 2 people that placed above him are also going to be trying to get his throne. And our grand finalists are going to be Hurt in second and Miya in first. Hurt's going to pick up wins on 33 pairing blocks, Right Shia, T, and Zach Ray to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, he gets that really nice win over Acola, ends up losing to Miya in the winner's side game 4, and beats Acola once again lose to Miya, though this time he manages to take it to game 5. And Hurt is going to be one of the few people in the entire world to have a winning record on Acola when they've played more than like 1 or 2 sets. It's going to be 3-2 in his favor, and that is a very impressive stat line to boast. Hurt is definitely in contention for being the best player in the world right now. His worst performance is going to be coming from Delta 9, or rather Delta 8 this weekend, where he ends up getting 9th place, but you can't have recovered it harder than this. 2nd place at the biggest event of the year, only losing to the same guy who's also in contention for the best in the world, and arguably your hardest matchup. Like, you can't feel too bad about this one. Hurt is an incredible player, and I'm just really happy that he's kind of living up to the talent that we knew he had. And the final player that we got to talk about, the big winner of Kagaribi 12, is going to be Miya. No sets dropped. He beats Goblin, Base Mage, Snow, and Osimo to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, he beats Tama P and gets 2 wins over her, reverse 3-0ing him in the grand finals. And Miya just looked so strong this weekend. 2nd place at Delta, now a 1st place at Kagaribi, and I'm just so impressed how much better he is versus Hurt specifically, because the first time they played, it was an absolute... It was bad. It was just bad Smash for Miya. I'm not going to lie. He did not know how to play that matchup. It is very clear that he has put a lot of time into that matchup to understand its intricacies. And while Hurt is still very good at it, Miya is way better. He's adapted better. He's using the hammer specifically against Snake up B because he knows that's the best chance he's going to get. He even got a 9 kill in the grand finals in a pivotal moment. Like, it was really, really strong counterplay from Miya in that spot specifically, but throughout the entire tournament, he just looked incredible. He looked like the best player there, and Miya, as I kind of alluded to earlier on the video, has effectively won 3 majors this weekend because 2 of them are retroactively made majors because of Tama P's performances. You have him actually getting a major win here, as well as a 2nd place at Delta. Miya, I think, is the player that is probably poised to be the best in the world now, considering how many more major wins he has over every other player. I think it's 7 at this point, which is ludicrous because the person in 2nd place for most majors won is 2. Like, it's not even close in that aspect, and there are other players that can catch up. Miya does have a couple lower performances, but I think right now he's in a really, really good spot to be the best player in the world. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sport. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!